Hi, I'm Rachel Potts, and I'll be giving you a quick video tour of my ePortfolio. So first on my home screen, you'll find my autobiographical narration, which introduces you to me, my experiences in the Learning Design and Technology program, how the program helped me achieve my professional goals, and my goals for the future. Skipping over the video tour tab, we'll go straight to the portfolio page. Here you'll find a video of me explaining why I joined the LDT program, and also a detailed explanation of each standard and substandard, which you can click through. Next, we get into the artifacts page. For this part of the tour, I'll go through the explanation of each artifact and how it meets the AECT standards outlined. For AECT Standard 1, Content Knowledge, candidates demonstrate the knowledge necessary to create, use, assess, and manage theoretical and practical applications of educational technologies and processes. So the first artifact we have is for Standard 1.1, which is creating. The definition of this is candidates demonstrate the ability to create instructional materials and learning environments using a variety of systems approaches. So I chose an artifact from my EME 6208 Interactive Media course that I took in spring 2020, and I chose to use my IMA6 final website. This artifact was created as my final project in my second semester for EME 6208. For this project, I created a website using HTML and CSS to showcase all of the projects I had completed throughout the course, including a job aid, usability testing report, instructional video, and linear and branch training using Adobe Captivate. This artifact demonstrates that I can effectively create instructional material using a variety of formats such as infographic, video, and interactive media. Next, we have Standard 1.3, which is assessing and evaluating. Candidates demonstrate the ability to assess and evaluate the effective integration of appropriate technologies and instructional materials. For this, I chose an artifact from my EME 6055 Current Trends in Instructional Technology class that I took in fall 2019, my first semester. From this course, I chose an assignment from W41 and W91 Activity, Explore and Evaluate E-Learning Tutorials, and Virtual Reality. These artifacts were created in my first semester of EME 6055. For these assignments, I reviewed a LinkedIn course and a virtual reality course. I had to assess the use of learning theories in the design of the instructional material and evaluate the effectiveness by determining the instructional affordances of the technology. These artifacts demonstrate that I can effectively assess and evaluate the integration of technologies. Next, we have Standard 1.5, which is ethics. Candidates demonstrate the contemporary professional ethics of the field as defined and developed by the Association for Educational Communications and Technology. I used an artifact from my EME 6347 Digital Media and Learning class that I took in fall 2020. For this, I chose an infographic that I used on my final project. This artifact was created as part of my final project in my fourth semester. For this final, which was a group project, we created a virtual instructional technology student lounge within Microsoft Teams. My part in the project was to determine and address ethical consideration of equity and equality for users that the lounge may affect. Along with creating the lounge itself, I included a short write-up of how these issues were addressed and also created the infographic of the community guidelines. This artifact demonstrates ethical considerations by effectively defining and developing guidelines for a community. Next, we have our AECT Standard 2 artifacts, which is content pedagogy. Candidates develop as reflective practitioners able to demonstrate effective implementation of educational technologies and processes based on contemporary content and pedagogy. First, we have Standard 2.1, creating. Candidates apply content pedagogy to create appropriate applications of processes and technologies to improve learning and performance outcomes. I chose an artifact for my EDF 6284 Problems in Instructional Design for Computers, which I took in fall 2020. I chose to include my M7 storyboard. My group and I completed this assignment as part of our final project in my 4th semester for EME 6284. For our project, we were tasked with creating instructional material for parents in Hillsborough County who are seeking information on how to transition their child to e-learning from a traditional classroom. For this storyboard, we created a plan for each slide in regards to purpose, user interactions, design, and aesthetic specifications, links, audiovisual, and the applicable Mayer's principles of multimedia learning. The artifact demonstrates the standard because it illustrates the effective use of aesthetics, functionality, and sequencing to create a storyboard that could be used to build an effective learning module. Next, we have Standard 2.2, using. Candidates implement appropriate educational technologies and processes based on appropriate content pedagogy. I chose an artifact from EME 6209 Digital Video, which I am taking spring 2021. I chose my M6 screencast tutorial video. So this video was completed in my 5th semester for EME 6209. This assignment included a screencast tutorial of how to do an editing technique for a video editing software of my choice. I chose to show how to detach audio from a video clip and play it over a still image in iMovie for iPhone. This artifact demonstrates the implementation of appropriate technology based on content pedagogy by using video screencasts to show a video editing technique. All right, and next we have Standard 2.3, which is assessing or evaluating. Candidates demonstrate an inquiry process that assesses the adequacy of learning and evaluates the instruction and implementation of education. EME 6419, Motivational Design for Learning Technology, is the class that I chose to take this artifact from. I took this course in summer 2020, and I chose my final research paper proposal. This was the final paper in my 3rd semester for EME 6419. This final was a motivational research proposal on the motivational issues and motivational design strategies in the workplace. This artifact demonstrates this standard because it uses ARC's motivational theory to assess the adequacy of the training, determine the motivational problems and needs of the learners, and discusses how to meet those needs through instruction and course implementation. All right, next we have our AECT Standard 3 artifacts. Learning environments. Candidates facilitate learning by creating, using, evaluating, and managing effective learning environments. So first we have Standard 3.1, creating. Candidates create instructional design products based on learning principles and research-based best practices. I chose an artifact from EME 6457, Distance Learning, which I took spring 2021. And I chose an artifact M6LL Interaction. This LL interaction plan was developed in my 5th semester for EME 6457. This plan is part of a larger project, and in it, my group and I discuss how to increase learner-learner interactions with our mini course design. This artifact demonstrates the use of learning theories and principles that were considered to make the mini course successful. Next, we have Standard 3.2, which is using. Candidates make professionally sound decisions in selecting appropriate processes and resources to provide optimal conditions for learning based on principles, theories, and effective practices. I chose an artifact from EDF 6284, Problems in Instructional Design for Computers, which I took of fall 2020, and I choose to include my M4 instructional design proposal. This IDP was developed in my 4th semester for EDF 6284. In the development of this IDP, my group and I focused on providing parents with information and resources to assist them and their student with a transition from traditional learning to e-learning. Throughout this process, we had to make design decisions based on our audience and the chosen method of delivery. This artifact demonstrates the standard because it goes into detail about the project need, target audience, objectives, instructional strategies, materials, and assessments. Next, we have Standard 3.6, Diversity of Learners. Candidates foster a learning community that empowers learners with diverse backgrounds, characteristics, and abilities. I chose an artifact from EME 6347, Digital Media and Learning, which I took in fall 2020, and this is my final project. This final project was created in my fourth semester for EME 6347. For this final, which was a group project, we created a virtual instructional technology student lounge within Microsoft Teams. My part in the project was to determine and address ethical consideration of equity and equality for users that the lounge may affect. Along with creating the lounge itself, I included a short write-up of how these issues were addressed and also created the infographic of the community guidelines. This artifact demonstrates diversity because this project was aimed at creating a space for graduate students enrolled in the Learning Design and Technology program to interact with each other virtually. This project would enable students to feel like they are part of a community, especially in our current virtual world of social distancing. Next, we have the AECT Standard 4. Artifacts. Professional knowledge and skills. Candidates design, develop, implement, and evaluate technology-rich learning environments within a supportive community of practice. So first we have Standard 4.1 Collaborative Practice. Candidates collaborate with their peers and subject matter experts to analyze learners, develop and design instruction, and evaluate its impact on learners. For this artifact, I chose from EME 6613, Development of Technology-Based Instruction, which I took in spring 2021, and it is our final project. This project was completed in my fifth semester. For this project, my team and I worked with a client, SME, to create a scenario-based e-learning experience using Articulate Storyline 360. The e-learning focuses on developing physician leadership skills for physicians in leadership. We would meet as a team on a weekly basis and discuss our progress, plan, schedule, feedback, design, content, and goals. This artifact demonstrates this standard because during the development, we did an analysis of the target learners, worked with an SME, storyboarded, and then developed a final product and evaluated its impact on learners with usability testing. Next, we have Standard 4.3, Reflection on Practice. Candidates analyze and interpret data and artifacts and reflect on the effectiveness of the design, development, and implementation of technology-supported instruction and learning to enhance their professional growth. EME 6208 Interactive Media is where I took this artifact from, and I took that class in spring 2020. It is the usability report. This usability testing was completed in my second semester for EME 6208. This assignment required my group and I to conduct usability testing on Busuu, a popular language learning app. We conducted the testing, collected the data, and presented our findings in the usability report. This artifact demonstrates the ability to interpret data, reflect on that data, and determine the effectiveness of technology-supported instruction. And next we have Standard 4.4, Assessing Evaluating. Candidates design and implement assessment and evaluation plans that align with learning goals and instructional activities. I chose an artifact from EDF 6284, Problems in Instructional Design for Computers, which I took in fall 2020, and this is our formative evaluation plan. This assignment was created in my fourth semester. The formative evaluation was created for users to provide feedback on our final project, which was a CBI designed for parents who were seeking information on transitioning their students to e-learning. This artifact demonstrates this standard because we designed and implemented an assessment and evaluation plan. We conducted one-on-one observations with users and took notes of their experiences, difficulties, and comments, and then provided them with a survey containing Likert scale as well as open-ended questions. Next, we have AECT Standard 5 artifacts. Research. Candidates explore, evaluate, synthesize, and apply methods of inquiry to enhance learning and improve performance. First, we have Standard 5.1, Theoretical Foundations. Candidates demonstrate foundational knowledge of the contribution of research to the past and current theory of educational communications and technology. For this artifact, I used one from EDF 6481, Foundations of Educational Research, which I took in spring 2020. For this artifact, I am using my final paper. This assignment was my final paper in the second semester. This paper used research to determine the relationship between motivation and management styles in the workplace and propose a future study on this relationship. This artifact establishes a relationship between motivation and management style, proposes further research, and establishes how employees benefit from increased motivation in the workplace. It connects past research and motivation to current problems and establishes relevance. And last, we have Standard 5.2, which is method. Candidates apply research methodologies to solve problems and enhance practice. I chose an artifact from my EME 6055 Current Trends in Instructional Technology, which I took in fall 2019. This is my final paper. This assignment was my final paper in my first semester. For this paper, I researched augmented reality, or AR, its history, and the effect the use of AR could have on employee training programs, whether for skills or tasks. This artifact establishes that most private companies understand that employee training is valuable and how these companies can benefit from an instructional team. Once this is established, further research is used to confirm the enhancement that these programs can have with the use of AR. Alright, so now that we have completed going through all of the AECT standards and substandards and why those artifacts meet those standards, we're going to go into our portfolio reflection. Under reflection, I go through how my experience putting together the portfolio was and my overall experience at USF. I started the Learning Design and Technology program with years of professional experience, a desire to expand that experience, and a hope that I would feel prepared to join the world of instructional design upon completion. I was not disappointed. Throughout this program, I have acquired knowledge and skills to assist me as I begin a new career field, a community of mentors and peers that have been more than willing to help, and resources to continue developing my understanding of the instructional design world. I have been lucky enough to establish connections in FredGyms and to begin a new role of research assistant at USF. Though my experience in the Learning Design and Technology program was largely positive, there are some things that I would have done differently to improve my experience. Though I saved all of my documents and assignments that I submitted for my course, I didn't organize them by class. This would have been largely beneficial and would have saved a lot of time trying to search for a file. Most assignments were dumped into a graduate school folder, and it was a bit tedious to comb through them. I also would have begun working on my portfolio sooner. My number one tip to anyone in the LDD program would be to start organizing artifacts as early as possible. By the second to last semester, I probably had a significant number of artifacts that fit under some of the standards. Picking those out earlier would have saved a lot of time. My perspective on technology, learning, and teaching has changed while in this program. In my professional life, my exposure to corporate training was limited to traditional classroom training and curriculum development, seminars, and video. Oftentimes, when I wanted to learn more on a subject, I was left victim to Google and extensive firewalls. In the last year and a half, I have learned that teaching, training, and instructing can be so much more. The field of instructional design is vast, offers research-backed theories, ever-improving technology, and continues to have room for study and development. and I look forward to being a part of it. And lastly, after our reflection, we have my resume. Here you can check out my professional background, my educational background, and the highlights of my resume. That's it for my video tour. Thank you for joining me.